Hey everybody, it is your girl Mo, and we are here with another amazing episode of the Mo You Know Live. I know I have not done this in a couple of months, but I am so excited and so happy to be back because today I have a very special guest that I want to present to some, introduce to others, and we just want to get right into it because everybody knows this is Black History Month, and not only is it Black History Month, we have a very important African American African American who did a lot for blacks, a lot for America. So I just want to introduce Mr. Clifton Taulbert. Hi, hello, Mr. Taulbert.
Hello, ma'am. How are you today?
I am wonderful. I know I
Great.
have been thanking you and singing your praises ever since I was introduced to you by the Women's Business Center over at Seed. Got my little Seed placard here. Because when we were talking about what we were going to do for Black History Month, we were because we work at the like I said, the business center. So I'm like, okay, we teach from your book, Who Owns Ice House. And Caitlin was saying, well, Mr. Talbert, we may be able to get him. I'm like, that would be phenomenal. And we could get Mr. Talbert to talk about the book and some of the other things that you've done for Black History Month. So I just want to thank you again for saying yes to that.
Well, it was a pleasure. You have a lot of choices. The world has over 8 to 10 billion people. So you had a lot of choices. So thanks a lot for choosing me today.
Absolutely. Like I said, we don't have enough time to go through all of the phenomenal things that you've done, but I do want to get into how you started in entrepreneurship. I know, like I said, one of your main accomplishments, and we'll let you talk about some of your other accomplishments, but the one, like I said, that I'm most familiar with is you authoring the book Who Owns Ice House. So can you tell us a little bit more about how you came to write that book?
Well, it's a matter of doing what I call reflection. And as I began to reflect on my life today, and I think maybe for all of us, you find that your life has been made possible by the generosity of others. And to that extent, someone was asking me, say, well, you've done quite a bit in the entrepreneurial space. To whom do you give that credit? I said, I have no doubt. I give it to my great uncle Cleve. He owned the ice house in Glen Allen, Mississippi, and I was hired to work for him when I was 13. Of course, he hadn't read the rules that I was probably too young, and I didn't know to ask that questions. So I said yes. So I ran the ice house. My first time working for a person who looked like me, who paid me, and had incredible work ethics and incredible strategies in order to be successful. And I had the opportunity to be a part of that.
That is amazing. And I know how hard it is for entrepreneurs to black entrepreneurs today. I assume that it was extremely difficult being a black entrepreneur back in those days.
It's really interesting. Black history is not a linear story of just, excuse me, things not going well. Even when things were going extremely bad, there were black people who had found a way to live beyond that and reach above that. And I think my Uncle Cleve was probably among those people. Things were bad as it related to the broader society. But within the quote unquote colored communities, great things were going on. People were being educated, businesses were thriving. But Uncle Cleve was different in that his business served the entire community, both black, white, Italian, and Jewish community. And that was relatively different. It was certainly not the status quo in that day. But for him, he had found a way to become a provider of a service to our entire small community, which was absolutely amazing at a time when legal segregation was adhered to very, very closely.
Absolutely. And I know one of the things when we first talked, um, I was saying, a lot of our African American businesses now with the pandemic and all of the things that have happened, I said a lot of them are just holding on by a thread. And you said something so profound to me. Do you remember what you said?
No, I think you're going to have to tell me.
Yeah, so you said, Mo, it only takes one thread to weave something back together. And that's all you need. And what I took from that is, okay, it only takes um, one yes, one opportunity to get your business back together. So what would you tell an entrepreneur now that's having, that's holding on by a string?
Well, I think you've said it probably better than myself. The fact that you're holding on is not unusual. That's the story of many people across the spectrum of the universe. Those who become successful, either moderately or excessively successful, there may have been, in all likelihood, times in their lives where they literally held on due to the fact maybe not enough supplies, not enough money to pay their income and invoices, etc., but just enough to not be kicked out of the industry. But at the same time, they turned on their creativity and began to find a way to take that one piece of thread and began to make more out of it than it looked as if that could be done. And I think that's what really separates the entrepreneur from the average working person who does well. In that when you run up against odds, rather than leaning away from the odds, you lean into them and you find a way to really take that one thread and end up making a tapestry that you would not have had otherwise.
Absolutely. And if y'all, like I said, I know a lot of us are hanging on by a thread, but you still have something to hold on to.
Oh
And you
yeah,
said
most definitely. And the thing about history, black history, is so incredible that when it was established in 1926, Dr. Carter G. Woodson is, had petitioned for that because he recognized the intelligence, he recognized the perseverance, he recognized the tenacity, and he recognized the genius that lived within these men and women who were closely kin to slavery, to that period of enslavement, 246 years. But people forget that in 1865, with the 13th Amendment, by 1877, which is only 12 years later, black people had established a town called Nicodemus, Kansas, that still exists today. So you look back, and these were people who only had a thread, but they had a long enough thread to create a town that still exists today.
absolutely. And you mentioned 1865, and I don't know, everybody knows this, but I know that's the year that Juneteenth was established when the slaves were free from Galveston. Am I correct on that?
That Juneteenth, yes, most definitely, because that was 2 years after the Emancipation Proclamation, which was in 1863, which would have freed those enslaved people in the succeeding states, the state that seceded from the Union, which included Texas. And that's where that word, for whatever reason, took that word 2 years to make it to Texas. But it made it there in June 19th, 1865.
I am so excited because I know I work with the Juneteenth Freedom Festival here in Fayetteville, and I know the founder, Kia. She's actually the mayor of Spring Lake now. She petitioned and petitioned. So, how did you feel when Juneteenth became a national holiday that we fought so long for? How did that make you feel as individually?
You know, I am so happy being who I am and the culture that created me. I just want the whole world to understand that these incredible people that look like me and look like you, we are an incredible gift to the universe. And when June 19th came along, as a celebratory opportunity, not just for the state of Texas or California or Oklahoma, those states that knew about it and it embraced it and kept it going, but it was spread abroad across the whole United States and around the world. That there were African Americans who continued to work for 2 years after being emancipated without any knowledge that that had taken place. But at the same time, those same people, not only did they celebrate that, but they raised funds in order to create a park where they could hold that celebration. And that to me, when you're just holding on by a thread, you take that thread and buy a park. That's what
Absolutely.
they did.
And I love everything about it because I tell people all the time, one of the reasons why I got into PR and marketing and all of the things, because I never want anybody not to have what they need because they don't know or because they don't have the money to make it happen. I'm like, you know what? Somebody has the money. Somebody has the knowledge. All you have to do is meet us halfway and be willing to do the work and have the work ethic to make your dreams come true.
And that, that I did a post yesterday, which has gotten hits from all across the country. When I was much younger, I was in a little town called Yazoo City, Mississippi. It was during Black History Month, and I thought about it. I had gone there to make a speech, made the speech, but the host said, Mr. Taulbert, before you leave, we want to show you something. And so I got in the car. They drove me through Yazoo City. Then they came upon this incredible Southern mansion. I mean, it was just absolutely phenomenal. And so having grown up in the South as I had, I've seen multitude of Southern mansions. But here's the story, Ms. McFall. This is the story. The mansion was built by a black man named John Oakes, Oakes, who had been a free man in South Carolina. His wife and his two children were enslaved. He bought the freedom of his wife and his two children. They moved and made their way to Natchez, Mississippi. So he and his son, over a period of years, about 10 years, ended up building this incredible mansion in honor of his wife and the mother of his children. The Oaks House, I called my little article, The House That Love Built, an incredible mansion. I just assumed it was another white antebellum home. But no, it was the home of a black man and his wife and his children.
Now, how amazing is that? Because I know when I was a little girl, I used to, used to ride around the neighborhoods and see all of these big houses. And it's like now, and when we see black people, when we've made it, it's just like we get so, I know I do, I get so overwhelmed. Just like when I met you, I'm still on cloud nine to see all of the things, like I said, that you achieved and that other African Americans have achieved. So that is, to me, that's phenomenal.
And that's the thing about life. As a writer, I've had the opportunity to write 15 books. Once Upon a Time When We Were Colored became a major motion picture, and Last Train North was nominated for the Pulitzer Prize. And of course, you're aware with Who Owns the Ice House that has been translated into multiple languages and is basically making an impact all around the world. The story of this one older black man in Glen Allen, Mississippi, his life lessons have become lessons that men and women are using at some of the most incredible business schools throughout our country. All we had, maybe, as you said earlier, may have been a thread, but we figured out how to make a tapestry.
Absolutely. And like I said earlier, the Women's Business Center at Seed, we teach our entrepreneurial classes from that book. And I spoke to the library last week, and as I told you, they're going to care. They teach the Ice House series as well, but they're going to have the books in the library for people to read, to check out. So I'm like, that may not be a big deal to anybody else, but to me, that's a huge deal because our entrepreneurs, our kids, our blacks kids, our white kids, like I said, our Latino kids, they need to know that, hey, you can do this. And here are the books. Here is the information to help you achieve your dreams. So I'm really proud that we were able to do that.
Now that's a good thing for and libraries are still incredible places.
Yes,
Where the history of the world lives and where the future can be made to be better by embracing history, understanding what history teaches us. But I often tell people history is incredible, but you have to go to class.
And you have to read. That's one of the things. And I
Yeah.
know now, I know I was listening to the audio book. So nowadays, you don't even have to read because your books are on audio books. So, guys, now there's really no excuse for you not to get this information because somebody will read it to you, but you still have to take the time to get the information and apply it because knowledge without application is dead.
Well, when I think about the John Oakes and his son Augustus, and this was in this started out in the 1850s, and they lived into the early 1900s. But what was amazing, Yazoo City, the main part of the city at the turn of the century, basically burned down. But Augustus Oakes, the son of John, had a very prosperous lumber business. And from his company, from the black-owned company, they were able to buy the lumber that rebuilt most of downtown Yazoo City. And when they were getting ready to build a school for the blacks and floated a bond in order to do it, Augustus J. Oakes, the son of the black man, had made enough money to buy all of the bonds that were floated to ensure that the black kids of Yazoo City, Mississippi would have a school of their own. I mean, that's
That
an incredible story. I mean, that should set you on fire. I mean, if that could happen when he had nothing, what can happen today when the world has changed drastically and the opportunities are not as hidden as they may have been in the past?
Absolutely. And that's one of the things, like I said, I'm all about exposing those opportunities because, like I said, a lot of the times they're not hidden anymore, but they're not as widely promoted as they could be. So I tell people, like, hey guys, like I said, the internet, and I know some people are scared of the internet. I don't know why, but all that information is out there now. And I know I work with a one of the legendary high schools here in Fayetteville, E. Smith High School. And yesterday we talked on my radio program and about the history. And I was schooled on some things. I didn't know that back in the day, all the black kids in Fayetteville had to be bused towards this one school, all across town. So, and that was a phenomenal history. So we were talking about the legacy of the school and why kids should be ecstatic. These kids now are kind of different, but like there were at one point you didn't have a choice; you had to go there. So now you have the choice to go there, and you feel a way about it. So I just love history. I love learning, and I tell people like, okay, never stop learning, never stop uh, when you get an opportunity to make something of yourselves, to do the things that you want to do. Because, like I said, our ancestors fought for this. They didn't have it as easy as we have now.
No, no. There's nothing easy about slavery. And
Right.
there's nothing and there's nothing easy about post-slavery either. But at the same time, I've often tell people just imagine what they would have thought. Just imagine what their dreams were that no one knew but them.
Right.
Just imagine what they were planning. I mean, you don't just get free from enslavement after 246 years and all of a sudden you're building towns. That's what Tulsa's Black Wall Street that was destroyed in 1921. That history goes back to 1865. It goes to 1832. It goes to 1887. Black people were involved in intricately involved in the history and the evolution of our country. 1832, Andrew Jackson had the Removal Act. So all the native people had to leave from where they were to a place called God forsaken the territories, which was comprised of land purchased from France in 1803, the Louisiana Purchase. Well, people forget that when the Trail of Tears, we think oftentimes that was only native people who made that trek from the Carolinas, from Tennessee, from all these other places into the territory. That was over 5,000 enslaved people who made that journey as well. And they ended up in the territories And in the territories by 1901, they had built 50 distinguished black towns. Not one, but 50.
That
I
is
mean, we have, we have an amazing story of triumph, an amazing story of success in spite of. We tell the world that in spite of, yes, say yes to life in spite of.
absolutely, because I know last week, I think I was telling you, Fayetteville State did a series. They have a My Story series, and they had Ursula Dudley on. And a lot of times people be like, "Well, all they can say is no," and she brought it up. She's like, "All they can say is yes or no." So you take that. If you get that yes, you take that yes and you run with it. So I'm glad you mentioned Tulsa because you currently live in Tulsa, correct?
Sure.
Yeah, and I know we just celebrated the 100th anniversary of Black Wall Street. So, how is Tulsa now? Tulsa today in 2022.
It's 2022, and I would say that Tulsa is certainly not the same city it was in 1921, but it's just like everything else. We always have the opportunity to grow into our better selves for the
Yes,
simple reason we learned how to be separate and unequal for hundreds of years. But to learn how to reverse that and to realize that this is a universe of like people. We're all the same. You know, everyone cries a salty tear. Nobody's tear has honey meshed up in it. It's a salty tear that we all
yes,
cry. And when we laugh, it's the laughter of the universe, not just one set of people. So I think that Tulsa is certainly different than it was in 1921. And I think in many ways is striving to become an example of how one can rise from the ashes of destruction and become a home for all.
absolutely. I love that so much because I know one of the things, I don't want to say Atlanta is the new Tulsa, but I know, have you heard of the Black Wall Street store that they have in Atlanta now?
I understand a lot, and I'll know about that pretty soon because I think, as I had indicated to you, one of my entrepreneurial endeavors is
Hmm.
to bring coffee into areas where they have not been. And
Right.
Atlanta is one of the cities that we will start March 1st, bringing Roots Java Coffee into Atlanta. And I'm very excited about that. Not that there aren't others, but 10 years ago, we were one of the first Black owned national coffee supply companies to be certified as such. And so it's been an incredible journey. It hadn't always been easy, but then life is not always easy. You don't throw life away simply because you have to stop along the way and tie your shoes. You tie your shoes and you keep going.
Absolutely, absolutely. And I'm glad you mentioned that because they're also coming to North Carolina, correct?
North Carolina and South Carolina and all of the quick trip stores, for the most part, will be carrying Roots Java coffee.
Now that is amazing because I know I'm in Fayetteville, and when you told me that story, I'm like, oh my God, we don't have a Quick Trips here in Fayetteville, but we do have one in Charlotte. I think we have
Yes.
over 15 Quick Trips in North Carolina that your coffee is going to be sold in. So that's phenomenal. If that's not Black history, I don't know what is.
Now and nothing is necessarily easy, but life is not. But
Right.
perseverance, tenacity, all of those types of elements that tend to make you have that stick to itiveness, as they said in Who Owns the Ice House. Uncle Cleve never heard the word entrepreneurship. He didn't know that word, but the word he knew was gumption. That was his word. And in the South, many of the older African Americans, they use that word to define success in spite of. I know I can do this because I have the gumption that it takes to do it. And if you have the gumption, you can accomplish what you set forth to do. And that's what the
Absolutely.
entrepreneurial mindset is all about.
Absolutely. You say gumption. Today I was like, okay, God, you're testing my fortitude, but I can do this.
Yeah.
I can do this. And I tell people all the time, you can do it too. If you set your mind to it. It's cliche. You can do anything you set your mind to. But I believe that in my heart of hearts, yes, it's going to be hard. Yes, you're going to get some no's. Yes, the doors aren't going to open for you. But I tell people all the time, that no that you get, that's their no. That's not the no that you can't do it. That's just the no that you can't do it with them. But you're going to do it because you got to keep going. You got to persevere and keep going till you get to your final destination.
Yeah, that's the story I think that the African American community has literally given the world because it was seen that branded and enslaved that would be the end of our journey. But when 1865 happened and 1863 happened, we understood that we had a choice. And that choice was to either look at the past and let the past forever become a cancer in our lives, or look at the future for our children that had not yet happened. And fortunately for me, for you, and millions of others, they look to the future. And if anyone with stripes on their back from beatings, children taken away from them, families dispersed throughout other places without their permission to do so. But yet, when that bell of freedom rang, rather than looking at what had happened to them, they began to look at what can I make in this world for my child, for my son, for my daughter, for my niece, for my nephew. And they set out to build towns. Most of the black colleges were built right after 1865, between 1865 and 1900. That's only 35 years. That's what we did in 35 years. It wasn't 100 years to build those colleges, 35. We couldn't go to their hospitals, so we built our own.
And that's what you got to do. With the thing now, what people talk about is what you want to bring, what do you bring to the table? And I know there's a lot of audio and reels, and I make a joke. I said I am the table. We're building our own table. You don't have to beg people to sit at their tables anymore.
Yeah.
You can ask.
I think, obviously, I think the gifts of life are indiscriminately passed along. And I think we make a grave mistake when we are not connecting ourselves to make things bigger and better. We lose with that. Steve Jobs said something before he passed away. He said, if you only have a few dots to connect, you can only anticipate or expect a very linear solution. But the more dots you have to connect and the more diverse the dots, the more robust and the more impactful are the solutions that you come up with. And that to me is the whole thing of life, is that the goodness of life in the intellectual capacity is not held captive by any one group of people. We find genius all over the world.
Absolutely. And we have found a genius in you, Mr. Topper.
No,
And
no, I'm just a young kid that grew up in the Mississippi Delta, picking and chopping cotton, and I promised myself I never wanted to do it again. So I decided that I would start a journey, and a journey that has never ended yet. And that journey included my relatives, my parents, obviously, and my son and daughter, my wife. What can I do? What will my legacy be? And I just look back at that town, at those people, and all that they gave me. I mean, not physical gifts, but they gave me the gift of valuing me. And when you are valued, it gives you an opportunity to understand what your contributions can become. But that's the gift that we have. We have the ability to value each other. And it is in that valuing process that we turn out the geniuses, the Oprahs of the world, the incredible people who have done great things and continue to do great things. The dads that's taking care of their kids, the mom that is working alongside her husband in their work together, the kids that are just doing great, going to school, studying, to become greater than their parents, because every generation should exceed that form before them. And I tell my son, I look for you to really just excite me with excitement of your success, because you should accomplish more than me. I said, you never had to pick cotton a day in your life. I said, so therefore, I have picked for you so you wouldn't have to do it. Now I expect more out of you.
Absolutely. And I tell my son all the time, I'm like, I'm all of the things that I'm doing, all of the sacrifices I'm making is so you don't have to go through the same things that I had to go through. So I don't want to make it too easy for him, but like I said, I do want him to be on equal playing field when he gets out into this world. And I know you said one thing when you were mentioning, your kids and your parents. There's one question I know a lot of when I'm having these conversations with my friends when we're the first small business owner, the first entrepreneur in our family, what advice would you give to? So it's a two-part question because you've been the son and you've been the parent. First, what advice would you give parents who they didn't grow up in the entrepreneurship world, who have kids who want to be entrepreneurs, but they don't know that world? So, they thinking, in a lot in our community, they think if you're not working a 40-hour job that you're playing and that you're wasting time and doing the things. So what would you tell those parents whose kids are venturing out and journeying into this entrepreneur world?
Well, I think the term entrepreneurial is a French derivative. And for many of us, we don't speak French. So I think it's important to help parents understand that this idea of business ownership, this idea of being able to do something yourself, and you may not have everything you need at the moment, but I would tell parents, don't take that away from your child. Support your child, because that my son I was speaking at a university today, and I was listening at part of it when I had an opportunity, and he said one of his greatest gifts to him were his parents. He's because my parents supported me in everything I wanted to do. And that doesn't mean you let your child go bananas.
Right.
But what it does mean, you sit down with your child and not say, don't do this, but let's talk about this. Let's hold a conversation about this. Where will this idea take you? How much does it cost to put this idea in place? And are you going to stick with it? What gave you the idea that this was a good idea? When did it all come about? It's sitting around the dining room table and making your kid feel as if he or she, they're at the right place with the right people at the right time to discover their gifts and their talents, which may be entirely different than the gifts and talents of their parents.
I absolutely love that because I know a lot of times that's a hard conversation to have, with people who may or may not get it. And the one thing I'll tell people who, like I said, if you have this dream, go for it. If hopefully, like I said, your parents will support you. I know my parents support me for the most part, but go for it. I was telling my stepdad yesterday. I realized God gave me this dream. He gave me this vision. It wasn't a conference call. So if he gave you the vision, he's going to see it through.
Yeah. Yeah. And it's just so nice when parents, because when parents support their child, when that child becomes an adult and brings his own family into the world, he will have a memory and a foundational look back. He's, oh yeah, I know exactly what to do. And that's what we want. Every generation to move up further, every generation to recognize what they can accomplish and what their child can accomplish. It's amazing. I know, I think it was last year, I believe it was last year, when Mrs. Obama was involved in the voting in the voting, and
Uh-huh.
they created, designed some things, and they were looking for top designers around the world. Well, my son's company was one of the ones that they chose. And when Marshall called me, he said, Dad, you won't believe who I talked to. You won't believe who I'm doing something for. I mean, it was as if the world had just, all of a sudden, he had discovered the greatest thing in the world. He said, Mrs. Obama will be wearing my stuff, Dad. Do you understand that? But what if I had told him no about his dream? He would have never had that opportunity.
That is phenomenal. I was talking to my son yesterday, and they in school, they ask you what do your parents do, and he was like, he told his class, like, my mom met President Obama, which I did when I was stationed in Hawaii. They're from Hawaii, so they come back to visit every year, and I make sure I was there, the first person there. So as soon as he got out the gate, as soon as he got off Air Force One, they came. I was right there in the corner. So if there's a picture of me, you can Google it, a picture of me shaking President Obama's hand that the AP used for their photo, and I still share it and all of the things. And even before, was it? I can't remember if it was before I shook his hand, but Mrs. Obama, she came to Hawaii and spoke with Hiring Our Heroes. Her and now First Lady Jill Biden, they have a organization called Joining Forces. And I remember she came and spoke, and that planted the seed for me to start my nonprofit because we were talking about hiring veterans. So you will be amazed, and I know you wouldn't be amazed, but people, when they are inspired, when they're motivated to see, okay, I can do this. They did this, I can do that. So that will change the game for a lot of us. Just having that inspiration of people that look like us, that have done something, like, hey, you can do this too.
No,
So I tell
it's
people I'm honorary Obama.
now there's I don't know anything we can't tackle and make it work.
Right.
We have those gifts, as does anyone else. The human family is an incredible gift to the universe, all of the human family. And it may take some of us longer than others to recognize and realize that. But at the end of the day, I don't want to be the only guy on an island by myself.
Absolutely. I don't want to
People
be.
matter.
They do. I tell people, if I'm at the table, I'm gonna open the door so you can come in. Like I said, if we have to pull up more tables, we have to include everybody, and that's one of the things I'm really passionate about, is making sure that everybody who wants an opportunity gets the opportunity to make their dream happen, whatever their dream is. Because, and I can really go deep into this because, like I said, I think about this all the time. But when people are doing what they're passionate about, that's how we end depression. That's how we end, not I don't want to say how we end anxiety, but depression. When you're making moves and making things happen, that was like, okay, you're happy, you're finding the joy. And so that's the one thing I am really passionate about, is helping people find that happiness, find that joy, to clear out the depression. Because like I said, since 2020, with this pandemic, life was already tough, but the pandemic just made it a whole lot tougher for us. So if we can just be a little bit nicer, a little bit more accommodating to one another, we can help people get over those hard times.
Yeah. Now, people are important to each other. We can become a bridge upon which others walk into their future much better off than when they started. That's
Yeah,
just the nature of humanity. We are so important to the success of each other. And sometimes it takes us a while to recognize that and to embrace the idea that others matter and that I can lend my life to that process.
absolutely, absolutely. So, Mr. Talbert, I know I said I was going to keep it at 30 minutes. We are a little bit over 30 minutes, and I know your time is very valuable. Do you have any closing remarks? And can you let our listeners and viewers know how they can get in contact with you, engage, where they can get the books? I know we told them we can get the coffee starting March 1st at Quick Trips. But if they want to bring you, because I know one of the things I'm working on is actually bringing you to Fayetteville at one of our universities. So if anybody else listening to this wants you to come to their school, their university, can you tell them how they can make that happen too?
Yes, just go. The website is cliftontaulbert.com. Very simple. Yeah, that's cliftontaulbert.com, and there are contact information there that you can find us. And the office number is 918-584-0414.
Thank you so much, Mr. Talbot, for your time today. Thank you for being very responsive, because normally when I put out requests like that, it takes a while to hear back from people. You will hear back like, dang, I forgot I even asked you, but you were very responsive, and I appreciate that more than you know. And for you to agree to come on and speaks to me, because entrepreneurs need to hear this story. They need to hear your story. They need that encouragement sometimes. So I thank you, for getting it. Like I said, we made it happen for Black History Month. So that's what I'm really proud of.
Yeah, you set your goal there, and you weren't going to let anything stop you. I didn't have an opportunity to tell you no because you never gave me a chance. Just, so that's a good thing. I could have. I'm right now. I have about 5 or 6 things on hold because of this 30-minute slot of time. But you never let me go into the conversation of why I couldn't. So I just dealt on when could I. So that is a credit to you for your tenacity, your perseverance, and your love for the community in which you live and the people that live within that community.
Thank you so much. I used to be a chaplain's assistant in, the Air Force, and my chaplain was like, "You don't take no for an answer." I'm like, like I told you, I'm like, "No, that's your no." But it's just like, okay, how do, if even if somebody tells me no, okay, well, how can we get to the yes? Why aren't you telling me yes? What do I need to change to make this happen? But thank you for not making it difficult, because, like I said, our entrepreneurs need to hear this.
Well, entrepreneurship is not a foreign uh, set of ideals, but entrepreneurship is very well steeped in the Black community because the Black community historically, we did not have banks that would loan us money. We did not have insurance policies that we could cash in to get the cash value. And there weren't very many people who could be called angels, financial angels within our community. So we had to work together and we had to be creative, but we did. I mean, you don't get from 1865 to 2022 with the success that, I mean, when you look at the wealth potential within the Black community, you're talking about we represent a nation. But all we have to understand, even more than that, a nation together is powerful. And that is the one thing that I would always suggest. And the last thing that I would say, together we are better.
I absolutely agree. I agree wholeheartedly because I always we're better together, we're better stronger, and we're going to be stronger together because no one was meant to be on this earth by themselves to do anything by themselves. So just knowing, I always reiterate to people, you have a team. Sometimes if you don't have your own team, there's other teams that you can join to be a part of, and you don't have to do this thing called entrepreneurship alone.
No, but thank you. It's been an honor to just have an opportunity, just have a conversation. It was not a formal conversation with 20 questions and 20 answers, but you took me many places, and we had a chance just to chat. And sometimes it's in the chatting that we discover what I call the great elements of life, and that's important. That's important to do. So
Yes,
I wish you a great rest of the week. And I hope that the weather there will be much better than the weather is scheduled to be here. I have a major speech to give tomorrow morning, and I'm just sort of trying to figure out, and I can't because the weather looks pretty nice outside now. But around midnight tonight, it's supposed to change drastically. So, and I'm trying to figure out what does that mean for Clifton. So we'll see.
absolutely. And I always pray for the best. And once again, thank you. And like I said, this is not the last time you will hear from me. This is just the beginning.
Well, take care. Give my best to your son and to the world that surrounds you. Just keep staying there. Keep being who you are. Letting the love flow forth. That's the best thing we can always do. So I'm
Thank
going
you
to go
so
back and do a little work because I have a meeting at 6:30 this afternoon that I have to attend. Can't get out of it. I'm being audited for one of our companies for our insurance purposes. So I got to fill out some documents on that I should have been doing in the minute that I'm talking with you, but I didn't get a chance to tell you no. So I'm going to go now and say goodbye. And to your audience, wherever they are and to whomever they are, you know, thank all of you for listening. It's been great talking with one of your own about the world in which we live in and how we can work together to make it better.
So much, Mr. Tower. Now I'm really going to go because now I really feel bad. Thank you again. And like I said, next time we talk, hopefully, like I said, we'll have more time and you'll be right here in Fayetteville, North Carolina.
Well, that would be a good possibility. So I'm going to leave now. I think I see something that tells me I can leave. Yes, I see the
Yes.
little X. I'm going to find it and I'm going to see if it takes me off of my chair. And now I'm getting ready to tap the X, the red X, and let's see what happens.
Yes. Oh my God, guys. That was so phenomenal. Thank you guys for tuning in. Like I said, I am Shadana Mo McFall, and I am here live in Fayetteville, North Carolina from the Fayetteville Cumberland Economic Development Corporation. Thank you, Mr. Van Goens, for your space. Thank you, Seed. Thank you, Terrell, for my makeup. Thank you, Marcus, for my hair. Thank you, thank you, thank you. Like I said, guys, anything that you want to do, you can do. Don't give people the chance to say no, because people will say no, but not if you don't give them the chance to. So, like I said, y'all keep watching, keep supporting, because, like I said, together we're better. Have a great one.